Today, we're diving deep into a massive government program in Meghalaya that's all about tackling youth unemployment. It's a really bold plan, making a huge promise. But, as the source material we're looking at points out, the whole thing might be built on a bit of an illusion.
And this is the number at the heart of it all. 1.2 lakh. That's 120,000 young people. And that number represents a huge government promise.
And this promise is really ambitious. The government is essentially saying, we're going to train all of you over the next 5 years, framing this as the ultimate fix for the state's unemployment crisis. So what is this plan really? It's called the Skills Meghalaya program, and let's break down how it's supposed to work.
Okay, so the official body driving this is the Meghalaya State Skill Development Society. The goal is crystal clear: get 1.2 lakh young people trained up in 5 years. And the focus is on 3 things: skilling, livelihood, and entrepreneurship. Now, how are they going to do it? Well, they're standardizing what's taught, they're teaming up with private trainers, and they're running these big campaigns to get the word out. Honestly, on paper, it looks solid. A well-thought-out, structured plan.
But here's where it gets interesting. We need to look at the core logic, the basic assumption that this entire massive program is built on. The thinking from the government side seems to go something like this. Step 1, young people are out of work. Okay. Step 2, let's give them skills that companies want. Step 3, once they have these skills, they're now officially employable. And so, step 4, they'll find jobs. It's a nice, straight line, right? It seems to make perfect sense, but does it actually hold up when you look at the real numbers?
And that brings us to the real heart of the issue, the big problem with that simple logic. See, once you start training thousands and thousands of people, you have to ask one very important question.
Right. If you're churning out 24,000 newly skilled young people every single year, where exactly are they all supposed to go? Do these jobs actually exist? Are they just sitting there empty, waiting for someone with a certificate to show up?
This chart really lays it all out. It's a huge mismatch. On one side, you've got a supply pipeline of 24,000 trained people a year. On the other side, well, that's the demand. The government itself says it can only create about 2,500 new jobs annually. And even if you look at a high-growth area like tourism, that's only projected to add about 6,750 jobs a year. The gap between those numbers it's just massive.
In fact, the source material calculates a shocking annual job deficit in the state, 67,500. This isn't just a small crack in the plan. As you can tell, it's a giant chasm between the number of people being trained and the number of actual jobs available.
And this huge gap is what leads to a concept that the analysis calls the training trap.
So what is the training trap? It's what happens when you pour all your energy into the supply side, training people, but you completely forget about the demand side, which is, creating the jobs for them to do. It looks like you're doing something productive, but it's a plan that's doomed to fail because it's only half a solution.
The source says it so well, it's pretty blunt. Skills training without job creation is just expensive certification. And just think about that for a second. A certificate in IT is pretty useless if there aren't any tech companies hiring. Your hospitality training doesn't mean much if no new hotels are opening. You're just left with a piece of paper, maybe some new hope, but the exact same lack of real opportunity.
So this is the fundamental disagreement right here. The program is built on the idea that the problem is with the youth, that they're unemployed because they don't have the right skills. But the source material argues something completely different. It says the problem isn't the youth, it's the economy. The jobs just aren't there. And that completely shifts where you should be focusing your efforts.
The analysis then goes even further, calling this whole approach victim-blaming disguised as empowerment. Wow! By telling young people that the only thing standing in their way is a training certificate, the program puts all of the responsibility, all of the burden on them. It lets the government and the wider economy off the hook for their role in creating an environment where skills can actually be put to use.
Okay, so if just training people isn't the answer, what is? Well, the source suggests we need to flip the entire strategy completely on its head.
The way the source describes the current approach is that it's like putting the cart before the horse. The skills training, that's the cart. And the job creation, the actual economic growth, that's the horse. Right now, we're trying to push this heavy cart without a horse to pull it. It's not going to get very far.
So the argument is you have to build the horse first. What does that mean? It means getting serious about industrial policy to bring companies in. It means building real infrastructure, things like 24/7 power, reliable internet, good roads.
It means making it easier for businesses to actually set up and operate. Once you have that engine, the horse, then you bring in the cart. That's when you roll out targeted skill training that is perfectly aligned with the jobs that are now actually available.
To put it simply, the entire sequence needs to be reversed. First, you create the opportunity. Then, and only then, do you train people to meet that very specific, very real opportunity.
So that leaves us with this final, really stark question. Even if we look at the state's most promising sector, tourism, the numbers just don't work. If you're creating about 6,750 jobs, but you're training 24,000 people, you're creating a surplus of over 17,000 skilled, certified, and still unemployed young people every single year. The question isn't whether the training is good. The question is whether we're training them for a reality that simply doesn't exist yet.